Hello, dear friends. No big world news today, but great messages and reflections. Opinion piece. Evolutionary change. Massive global change. Find your resonance. Divine feminine energy. Your awakening is imminent. Awakening to brilliance. How authenticity is lost. The old structure is not holding. Satellites are falling out of orbit. Central bankers acknowledge their failure. Did the Rockefeller Foundation predict the future? Drones have been abandoned to the honeycomb of rich honey. Let's start. For thousands of years, plans have been developed to create a new world through evolutionary and planetary change. The steps have included the emergence of a faction of living beings that would evolve spiritually and expose the character of those who would attempt to control the entire world for their own personal power, desires, and needs. These human angels have gone through great trials and tribulations to develop their perception and realization. Growing in their own spiritual mastery has allowed them to understand and remove the foundations of the current structure that has held society together. Those of you who are here and now have come as a part of the plan to unravel, dismantle, and remove a structure that is no longer sustainable. You are one of those beings who have come here to awaken and support others. The human angels are the ones who can arise in their spiritual power and bring clarity to such confusion and chaos. The structure of society is actually on the verge of collapse, even though it appears to be the same. This is happening because those who give it the support, energy, and life to function have abandoned the honeycomb, so to speak. The drones have abandoned the nest. This hollow honeycomb structure is no longer viable and will deteriorate and dissolve into emptiness. The few who believe it is real will discover that it no longer functions. It cannot function because the human consciousness, essential to this core organizational structure, is gone. This is not intended to cause fear, but to provide relief from the intense pressure. There has never been so much dissension and disruption throughout world history. But what is coming now is a massive world shift in which the structure will suddenly fail and will no longer bear the weight and pressure of the dissension that is being intensely played out. It will explode the very structure of humankind, creating a massive change for a better world based on cooperation, trust, and expansion for all people in a new world. This habitat is now tired and divided. Many had abandoned the structure of society, and although it seems to be waking, it is on the verge of crumbling, descending and dissolving into oblivion. The life energy that has kept it alive has moved into a new life world through individual beings awakening and withdrawing from the old framework. This shift is ushering in a new and compassionate world, anchored in the power of universal love. Human beings will realize the joy and deep satisfaction of a peaceful world where people honor and respect each other and live in peace. This dazzling and miraculous evolution is the planetary shift heralded over time. Awakening. Jesus through John. Your awakening is imminent, by John Smallman. We are the one. There is only one, and yet the power and energy that is the one is constantly manifesting in countless sentient beings as expressions of love. Every sentient being is connected and interwoven into what many call God. It is the infinite creative expression from which they all extend, blend and interact for the total and complete blissful bliss that is all that is. There, in that oneness, there is uniquely and eternally infinite aliveness, exhilaration, delight, refreshment, wonder, jubilation, joy and bliss that are beyond your ability to conceive. Awaken in the radiance that is infinitely loving yourself in the most magnificent state of harmony and cooperation to the absolute joy of every sentient and conscious being. Although the vast majority do not receive information about the efficiency of your loving intentions, I can assure you that they are having a very powerful effect. Nothing is superfluous, because to the Creator, every living being has been created in the most divine and loving way, so that it can experience and express itself with total freedom and delight in doing things, thus delighting God and moving your collective awakening process forward with purpose. Your awakening is imminent. Opinions. Find the resonance. Then you hear the music of the spheres and dance in perfect harmony with heaven according to Pot Dog. Divine Feminine Energy by Celia Feng. The sun entered the sign of the Crab on June 21st. Cancer is a beautiful water sign flowing with goddess energy. It is also the time when the solar lions of the stars begin to make their presence felt in preparation for the lion's gate. The star lioness carries a beautiful, soft and loving energy that is available right now. It is a very high and fine wave of energy that feels joyful, loving and peaceful. In fact, it is the cathar energy of Mary Magdalene. Ascension versus transhumanism. In ancient texts and modern times, William Henry researched ancient texts and myths over the past 3 decades and made discoveries related to outside intervention, genetic engineering of humankind, ascension and transhumanism throughout history. William is a leading proponent of the need for ascension through the activation of the rainbow light body to unlock the full human potential. How We Lose Our Authenticity by Matthew Saul. Watching children play and hearing their authentic laughter is one of life's greatest joys. We are all born as children, full of life, a sense of wonder and desire to explore and live in the moment. Children have no past baggage of future angst, so they express what they feel, and they are not afraid to love unconditionally. However, after the age of 3, children begin to become more docile. This happens to all of us. Developmentally, something changes within us, and we begin to lose that wonder, that innocence of childhood. Our neocortex, or thinking brain, strengthens, and therefore our mind becomes more dominant, putting our true feelings on the back burner. We slowly begin to focus more of these thoughts, and in doing so, begin to accumulate baggage from the past and future anxieties. This new self-esteem system forces us to change. It forces us to create a false image of ourselves, a dream. Gradually, we begin to realize that different people expect different things from us. Our parents, our teachers, our friends, our priests, our bosses, our siblings, our lovers, all want something specific from us. So, we are divided into dozens of different versions of ourselves. We become so good at living up to these different images of ourselves that we forget who we really are. Reset news. Satellites are falling out of orbit toward Earth at a disconcerting rate. Swarms of voracious insects ravage crops in the western US. They resemble fat grasshoppers, and extreme heat and drought conditions only increase their sheer numbers. Jeff Bezos says inflation hurts the least and fleet of the most. Shell says oil production capacity is too low. Barrel falls 2% on rising gasoline stocks and crude production. Another food processing plant destroyed in Campbell, Tennessee. Surprise massive installation of meat processing plants with robotics, artificial intelligence systems, and rail unloading integration, according to Mike Adams. Did the Rockefeller Foundation predict the future? In July 2020, the Rockefeller Foundation had already predicted it and called for a revamping of the food system as a whole to address it. While the report highlights the need for healthy diets and sustainable food productions, the words natural, organic, or grass-fed are absent, so that is not what they refer to. The Davos Forum has for years promoted the idea that insects should be recognized as a sustainable and healthy protein alternative that can save the environment and solve world hunger. Spain. The Spanish stock market falls 1.56% and loses 8,200 points, with Europe down. Grifols plummets on the stock market amid rumors of a capital increase. Fuel and food push Spanish inflation to 10.2%, its highest in 37 years. Avila, Huelva, and Lleida, the most affordable cities to buy a home. NATO would not respond to an attack on Ceuta or Melilla. Spain sends gas to Morocco through a gas pipeline. The United Nations calls on Spain and Morocco to clarify responsibilities for the tragedy in Melilla. Americas. The Chancellor of Chile travels to Spain to meet with the government and businessmen. Venezuela suspends classes and restricts flight and navigation due to the arrival of a cyclone. Maduro announces that he will work to achieve union between Colombia and Venezuela. Venezuela and China celebrate the 48th anniversary of their diplomatic relations. A book singles out Nicaragua, Cuba, and Venezuela for the absence of press freedom. The Nicaraguan parliament authorizes a loan for $352.58 million with the Central American Bank for Economic Integration. Mexico's largest industrial park hit by drought. Journalist Antonio de la Cruz is murdered in the Mexican state of Tamaulipas. 2 Mexicans among those arrested for the death of 51 migrants in a truck in Texas. US and Mexico admit failed immigration policy after Texas tragedy. Guatemala and Mexico will conduct a regional investigation into the Texas tragedy. The United Nations warns that the migration flows are tending to increase in the face of global problems. Bolivia asks Brazil for explanations for Bolsonaro's offer to give asylum to Janine Áñez. The 13 most violent cities in Brazil are in the Amazon. Brazil is in advanced talks with Argentina to receive gas from Vaca Muerta. Argentine businessmen reject the restriction on imports. Argentina increases its foreign debt and worries about its domestic indebtedness. Argentina calls for dialogue on Falklands after Johnson and Fernandez meeting. The IMF has asked El Salvador to eliminate Bitcoin as legal tender. Arrests under the emergency regime in El Salvador exceed 43,000. The United Nations calls on Honduras to make reparations to the victims of the coup against Manuel Zelaya. Ecuador suspends its crude oil production due to force majeure. Dialogue between Ecuadorian government and indigenous people to end protests. Economy. Central bankers acknowledge their failure on their inflation strategy. Central bank chiefs advocate prioritizing the fight against inflation over growth. The Fed will try to avoid the recession, but with no guarantee of success. Powell says Fed must accept greater risk of recession to fight inflation. Euro falls, dollar rises on Fed's hawkish approach. Lagarde confirms July rate hike and assures to go as far as necessary to stabilize inflation. Lagarde reiterates that the September rate hike may be higher than 0.25%. It is unlikely that we can return to the era of very low inflation, says Lagarde. U.S. economy contracts in the first quarter. Bank of America wants to prepare for what's ahead. How much gold has been mined? About 205,238 tons of gold have been mined throughout history, of which 2/3 have been mined since 1950. The Central African Republic announces the launch of Sango, its initiative to implement a new digital monetary system. A creditor files a winding up petition against the grant in Hong Kong. US to send $55 million in earthquake relief for Afghanistan. Cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin could experience a final wash decline before reaching $13,000 bottom, says an analyst. Crypto crash exposes Robinhood and Coinbase to predators. Crypto miners face margin calls and defaults as debt matures in bear market. Europe. Sweden and Finland are now formally members of NATO. NATO officially invites Finland and Sweden to join to the military bloc. Australia takes its tensions with China to the NATO summit. NATO accuses China of challenging its interests and security and brands Russia as the most significant and direct threat. China argues that democracy equals, in quotes, democracy equals democracy of the few, democracy of money. Dutch farmers go on strike against food production control. Austria reopens its coal-fired power plants. German air traffic control reports technical problems and disruption are expected through European airspace. Germany seizes 3 Gazprom tankers. The UK plans to cut off gas to the European Union if the crisis escalates. Russia. UK sanctions Russia's richest man. Russia tells United Nations chief it is ready to help avert a food crisis. Russia could buy currencies on friendly countries to weaken the ruble. Ukraine negotiates with Russia to release prisoners. The New York Times revealed Friday that the war in Ukraine is a secret operation by a three-letter agency. Chaotic scenes in Lysychansk, Ukraine. Soldiers flee the Russian advance. Between 5,000 and 7,000 Ukrainians trying to escape from Lugansk. US sent more ground, naval and air forces to Europe, with new troop deployments to Germany, Romania, Italy and Baltic countries. Asia. Biggest currency drop since 1997. Puts Asia's central banks on edge. JP Morgan sees China as a safe haven for equities due to its easing. Negotiations on Iran's nuclear program fail, Tehran says. A 300-kilogram giant stingray in Cambodia is the largest freshwater fish ever discovered. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.